Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters in Christ, today I want to talk about a divine principle, a spiritual code, that has the power to unlock the endless flow of abundance into your life. This is not just about paper bills or coins, it is about aligning yourself with the great law of supply, the law that God Himself has woven into the fabric of the universe. You see, prosperity is not an accident, nor is it the privilege of a chosen few. It is the natural state of the soul that trusts in the promises of the Almighty. The flow of money is simply a reflection of the flow of faith, gratitude, and right thinking. When we understand and apply this spiritual code, lack dissolves, doors open, and opportunities appear where once there were only obstacles. Today, we are going to step beyond mere wishing and step into knowing. Knowing that the source is unlimited, and that you are connected to it right now, in this very moment. Aligning with divine supply begins with the recognition that everything we see, touch, and experience comes from one ultimate source, God, the infinite spirit of abundance. When you truly understand that God is the provider of all good things, you stop looking to people, jobs, or circumstances as the origin of your prosperity. These are merely channels, the source is always God. This shift in awareness frees you from fear and dependency on external conditions, because you realize that no person or event can block what God has ordained for you. It is not the economy, the boss, or the market that sustains you. It is your connection to the divine supply chain, which never runs out and is never delayed. Every time you think in terms of lack, you cut yourself off from the current. Every time you affirm God's abundance, you open the pipeline wider. The divine supply is infinite, and it operates according to spiritual law. Florence Scovel Shinn often reminded her listeners that we live in a rich and bountiful universe, and that our only task is to align ourselves with it. This alignment is not achieved through striving or stressing, but through faith, right thought, and right action. To align means to bring your inner beliefs, words, and expectations into harmony with the truth that there is more than enough for everyone. If your thoughts are filled with doubt, you place a kink in the hose of supply. If your words are filled with fear, you vibrate at a frequency that repels blessings. But when you declare boldly, God is my unfailing supply, and I receive His abundance now, you begin to rewire your mind to match the reality of divine provision. This alignment is both an inward and outward practice. Inwardly, it is a conscious choice to dwell on thoughts of sufficiency and gratitude, even when outer appearances suggest otherwise. Outwardly, it means living as though you already have access to the abundance you desire, because in truth, you do. Faith is not passive wishing, it is active confidence in God's promises. When you align with divine supply, you release the need to chase or beg for resources, and instead, you stand firm in the knowledge that everything you require will arrive in divine right order and perfect timing. This is why some people seem to move through life with ease. They are not relying on limited human means. They are plugged into the infinite current. The mind plays a critical role in this process. What you focus on expands. If you dwell on bills, debts, and shortages, you magnetize more of them into your life. But if you focus on God's generosity, on the beauty and abundance already present, you draw more of that into your experience. You cannot serve two masters, faith and fear, and expect the flow to remain open. Faith is the currency of the spiritual realm, and when you spend it freely, you will never run out. Fear, on the other hand, is like a dam built across the river of blessings. The good news is, you hold the keys to remove that dam through the thoughts you choose, the words you speak, and the trust you cultivate. Aligning with divine supply also requires a willingness to let go of the belief in struggle. Many have been conditioned to think that abundance only comes through hard labor, endless sacrifice, or by taking from others. But in God's system, abundance is not taken, it is received. There is no competition in the divine plan, only flow. The same sun shines on all, the same rain falls on every field, and the same spiritual law operates for everyone. Your task is not to fight for your share, but to open yourself to receive the share that is already yours by divine right. This means releasing jealousy, comparison, and the idea that if someone else is blessed, there is less left for you. The storehouse of heaven is limitless, and your supply is as secure as your faith. Another important aspect is obedience to divine guidance. Often, God will inspire you with ideas, prompt you to take certain steps, or bring certain people into your path. These are not coincidences. They are part of the divine supply system delivering your provision. If you ignore these nudges out of fear, doubt, or laziness, you block the flow. But if you act promptly and with confidence, you signal to the universe that you are ready to receive. The alignment is not complete until your actions match your beliefs. Speaking prosperity while acting in ways that reflect scarcity sends mixed signals and slows your manifestation. Gratitude is the magnet that pulls the supply toward you. When you appreciate what you already have, you are acknowledging the source and keeping your attention on abundance. Even if it is something small, thank God for it. Thank Him for the opportunities that are unfolding, for the resources on their way, for the blessings that are already yours, but not yet visible. Gratitude aligns your spirit with the vibration of receiving, and when you are in that state, the flow of supply increases naturally. The more you practice gratitude, the more evidence of abundance will appear, often in ways you could not have imagined. Ultimately, aligning with divine supply is about trusting that God's plan for you is good, complete, and prosperous. It is releasing the human tendency to control every detail and instead resting in the assurance that your needs are met even before you ask. It is choosing to live by spiritual truth rather than appearances, to walk by faith and not by sight, and to let your every thought, word, and action be a reflection of your confidence in the one who owns all the riches of the universe. The power of the spoken word is one of the most profound truths in the spiritual life, yet it is often overlooked or underestimated. From the very beginning of creation, God demonstrated this principle when He spoke the universe into existence. Let there be light, and there was light. Words are not empty sounds, they are carriers of energy, seeds that create after their kind. When you understand this, you begin to see that every word you speak is shaping your reality. Florence Scovel Shinn often reminded her listeners that your word is your wand, meaning that the tongue holds the power to direct the course of your life, for better or for worse. When you declare lack, you plant seeds of scarcity that will sprout in your experience. When you declare abundance, you invite prosperity to take form in your life. The spoken word has creative power because it draws from the vibration of your inner belief. Words backed by faith act like commands to the universe. When you speak affirmations with confidence and conviction, you are not begging or wishing, you are declaring what is spiritually true and bringing it into visible form. This is why Scripture tells us to call those things which be not as though they were. Your words must be aligned with your vision, not with your fears. If you want the flow of money and blessings to open, you must discipline your speech to match the reality you wish to experience, even if the outer conditions look completely different at the moment. Affirmations are a practical way to harness this power. When you say something like, "God is my unfailing source, and I am richly supplied now," you are not making a casual statement. You are issuing a spiritual decree. Such decrees shift your consciousness, and as your consciousness shifts, your conditions begin to change. But the key is consistency and sincerity. An affirmation spoken once without faith is like scattering a seed and never watering it. You must speak your declarations daily, with feeling and conviction, until they become part of your inner knowing. The more you repeat them with belief, the more they imprint on your subconscious, and the subconscious will work to manifest them in your outer life. Guarding your words is just as important as speaking positive ones. Idle talk of poverty, illness, or failure acts as a counter force to your affirmations. You cannot declare abundance in the morning and then complain about lack in the afternoon without slowing your progress. Your words are like steering wheels for your life. Every statement points you toward a destination. If you steer toward wealth in one moment and toward lack in the next, you will only go in circles. This is why spiritual discipline in speech is essential. Speak only those things you want to see grow in your life. Cancel negative words immediately by replacing them with positive ones. Florence Scovel Shinn taught her students to say, "That is not true for me. I am divinely supplied." Whenever they caught themselves or others speaking in ways that contradicted abundance, the spoken word also has the power to shift the atmosphere around you. When you walk into a room and begin speaking words of faith, hope, and prosperity, you lift not only your own spirit, but also the spirit of those listening. This creates a magnetic field of positivity that can attract opportunities, resources, and ideas. On the other hand, negative, fearful talk can repel blessings and shut down possibilities before they even appear. This is why it is important to speak life over your finances, your business, your family, and your future. If a situation looks hopeless, that is the very moment to speak hope into it. Your words are not limited by the present condition. They are tools for creating a new condition. In the realm of money and prosperity, this principle is especially powerful. If your finances are tight, resist the urge to talk about being broke or barely getting by. Instead, declare what you want to see. I live in God's abundant supply. Money flows to me freely, endlessly, and in perfect ways. At first, it might feel unnatural if your circumstances don't match your words, but that is where faith comes in. Faith speaks before it sees. Faith declares before the evidence appears. Over time, your words will begin to align with your reality, and your reality will begin to align with your words. It is also important to speak blessings over others. When you wish prosperity for others, you are aligning yourself with the law of giving and receiving. Words of encouragement, generosity, and goodwill send out a vibration that inevitably returns to you multiplied. If you find yourself envying another's success, instead of speaking words of criticism or resentment, speak blessings over them. Say, I rejoice in their success, and I know my own blessings are on the way. This keeps your words in harmony with abundance rather than lack. Finally, the spoken word must be backed by a heart of gratitude. When you thank God out loud for the blessings you already have, you amplify them. Gratitude-filled words send out a signal that you are ready for more. Thank Him for the money you have, the opportunities on the way, the health, the ideas, the people, and the open doors. Even if you cannot yet see them in the natural, words of gratitude align you with the divine flow and accelerate the manifestation of your desires. Faith over fear is the foundation upon which all spiritual prosperity rests. For fear is the great blocker of blessings, while faith is the bridge that allows God's supply to flow into your life. The human mind is naturally drawn to worry when faced with lack or uncertainty, but worry is simply faith turned inside out. It is belief in the power of loss rather than the power of God. When fear dominates your thoughts, you shrink your capacity to receive, because you are focusing on what you do not want rather than on the promise that all your needs are met. Faith, on the other hand, opens the door wide for abundance to enter. It declares, I trust God to make a way, even when I cannot see it. And this trust becomes the magnet that draws resources, ideas, and opportunities to you. Fear often disguises itself as caution, logic, or realism, but at its core, it is a lack of trust in the divine plan. It whispers that you are alone, that there is not enough, that something terrible is coming, and it feeds on every negative appearance in your surroundings. But faith does not operate by appearances, it operates by spiritual truth. Faith knows that God is not bound by economic conditions, by human limitations, or by the current state of your bank account. Faith knows that supply is infinite and ever-present, and it holds to that truth, even when outer circumstances seem to contradict it. This is why Jesus so often said, "Fear not." Because fear causes you to sink, while faith causes you to rise. Overcoming fear is not about pretending it doesn't exist, it is about replacing it with faith, until it loses its power over you. One way to do this is to consciously redirect your thoughts every time fear arises. If you begin to worry about how you will pay a bill, stop and affirm, God is my unfailing supply, and He provides for me in perfect ways. Repeat this until the fear subsides and your heart feels lighter. Fear cannot coexist with sustained faith. The more you practice this, the quicker you will shift from anxiety to assurance. This practice is not mere positive thinking, it is standing on the unshakable truth of God's Word. Faith must be active, not passive. Passive faith says, I hope something will happen. Active faith says, it is already mine by divine right, and I act in accordance with that truth. This means making decisions from a place of trust rather than from a place of lack. If fear tells you to hoard, faith may guide you to give. If fear tells you to retreat, faith may guide you to step forward. Faith-based action sends a signal to the universe that you are aligned with abundance and that you are ready to receive it. The moment you act in faith, the flow of supply begins to respond, sometimes in ways that are immediate and other times in ways that unfold gradually. Faith also requires patience. Fear is impatient, it demands instant answers and proof. Faith understands that divine timing is always perfect, and that delays are not denials. When you plant a seed, you do not dig it up the next day to check if it is growing. You water it, nurture it, and trust that it will sprout at the appointed time. In the same way, when you plant seeds of faith through your thoughts, words, and actions, you must trust that the harvest is on its way. The moment you let fear take over, you are pulling up the seed before it can grow. Surrounding yourself with faith-filled influences is also essential. If you constantly listen to voices of fear, whether from the media, from pessimistic friends, or from your own inner critic, your faith will weaken. But if you fill your mind with scripture, with uplifting affirmations, and with stories of God's provision, your faith will grow stronger. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that we must guard our mental and spiritual environment as carefully as a gardener guards a precious crop. You cannot expect to reap a harvest of abundance if you allow weeds of fear to overtake your mind. Fear thrives in the unknown, but faith thrives in the unseen. The unknown is the territory where fear imagines the worst, while the unseen is the realm where faith knows the best is already prepared. This is why visualization can be a powerful tool for building faith. See yourself already living in the abundance you desire. Picture yourself debt-free, secure, generous, and joyful. Feel the emotions of that reality as if it is happening now. The mind does not distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a physical one, and by holding that image, you give your faith something tangible to rest upon. Gratitude is another weapon against fear. When you focus on what is already working in your life, fear loses its grip. Begin and end your day by thanking God for the blessings you can see and for those that are on their way. Gratitude shifts your focus from what is missing to what is present, from scarcity to abundance, from fear to trust. The more you practice gratitude, the more reasons you will have to be grateful, and the less space there will be for fear. Ultimately, faith over fear is a daily choice. Every challenge, every moment of uncertainty, presents an opportunity to either contract in fear or expand in faith. The more you choose faith, the more you will experience God's provision in ways that seem miraculous to the natural mind. The law of giving and receiving is one of the most powerful spiritual principles governing abundance, and it operates without fail just as surely as the law of gravity. Florence Scovel Shinn often emphasized that you cannot receive freely if your hand is closed, and you cannot expect blessings to flow to you if nothing is flowing out from you. Giving is not merely a charitable act, it is a declaration of trust in God's infinite supply. When you give with a joyful heart, you are affirming that you have more than enough, and this affirmation sets into motion the spiritual current that ensures more will come back to you. This law is not about loss, but about circulation. Money, like energy, must move to remain alive. If you hoard it out of fear, you choke the flow. If you release it with faith, You keep the river of supply moving and fresh. The key to understanding this law is to realize that giving and receiving are two sides of the same coin. You cannot have one without the other. Every time you give, you make space for something new to enter your life. This is why so many people find that when they give, even in times of tight finances, unexpected blessings begin to appear. The giving may be money, but it can also be time, encouragement, resources, or acts of service. The law responds to the spirit in which you give, not merely the form. If you give reluctantly, with fear or resentment, you are not truly activating the law. But when you give freely, without anxiety over whether you will have enough left, you are saying to the universe, I trust the source completely, and the universe responds accordingly. Many people misunderstand this law, thinking that giving is about earning God's favor or about getting something in return. In truth, God's favor is already yours. Giving simply aligns you with the flow that is already moving. Imagine a water wheel in a flowing river. If the wheel is blocked, the water cannot turn it, and the flow stops. When you give, you unblock the wheel and allow the current of blessings to move through your life. The giving sets the wheel in motion, and as it turns, it draws new supply toward you. The more consistently you give, the more consistent the flow of return will be. Another important aspect of this law is the attitude of gratitude when receiving. Some people have no trouble giving but struggle to receive. They may feel unworthy, embarrassed, or hesitant to accept gifts, help, or opportunities. Yet the law of giving and receiving requires both sides to be open. If you reject the gifts that come your way, you are shutting the door on your own blessings. To receive graciously is to honor the giver and the source from which the gift ultimately comes. It is to acknowledge that you are a channel through which blessings flow, not a dam that holds them back. Tithing is one of the most well-known practices connected to this law. In spiritual terms, tithing means giving a portion of your income back to God through whatever channel feeds your soul. A church, a ministry, a cause that inspires you. This is not about legalistic obligation, but about planting seeds in fertile ground. Just as a farmer sows seeds expecting a harvest, you sow financial seeds with the expectation of increase, knowing that God multiplies what is given in faith. Many have testified that when they began to tithe faithfully, even in small amounts, they experienced financial breakthroughs that seemed impossible before. This is not coincidence. It is the law of giving and receiving at work. Giving also shifts your focus away from self-centeredness and toward the well-being of others, which expands your consciousness of abundance. When you see yourself as a contributor to the good of the world, you align yourself with the universal flow of good. This mindset creates an openness that draws more opportunities for giving and, in turn, more opportunities for receiving. The cycle becomes self-sustaining, and your sense of lack diminishes because you are continually in motion, continually connected to the source. It is important to give where you feel led by your spirit, not out of guilt or pressure. Giving in alignment with your heart creates joy, and joy is a powerful attractor of prosperity. If you give simply because you feel obligated, the energy is tainted, and the flow is not as strong. Listen for the inner nudge that tells you when and where to give, and trust that the impulse is divinely guided. Sometimes you may be led to give to a stranger, to support a cause, to help a friend, or to invest in someone's dream. In each case, the act of giving plants a seed that will grow in ways you cannot predict. The law of giving and receiving is not limited to money. It applies to every area of life. Give love, and you will receive love in return. Give encouragement, and encouragement will find its way back to you. Give forgiveness, and you will experience the release and peace that forgiveness brings. In each case, what you give multiplies and returns to you, often through channels you never expected. This is why living generously is one of the fastest ways to expand your prosperity. It keeps you in a continual exchange with the universe, always sending out and always welcoming in. Even in times when it seems you have nothing to give, you can still give from the heart. A kind word, a prayer, a listening ear, or a sincere blessing spoken over someone's life can carry great spiritual power. These acts also keep you connected to the flow, because they are expressions of the same energy as financial giving. The form may differ, but the principle remains the same. Whatever you send out will return to you multiplied. Right thinking, right results is a spiritual truth that governs every aspect of prosperity, because the mind is the workshop where your reality is first formed. Every condition in your life is a reflection of the dominant thoughts you hold. Florence Scovel Shinn often taught that your outer world is simply your inner world expressed, and if you want to change what you see, you must first change what you think. This means you cannot think thoughts of fear, lack, or limitation and expect abundance to manifest. The seeds you plant in your mind will always produce fruit according to their kind, and the harvest will show up in your finances, relationships, opportunities, and overall well-being. Right thinking begins with the awareness that thoughts are not passive or harmless, they are creative forces. Each thought carries energy, shaping your emotions, influencing your words, and guiding your actions. If your mind is constantly occupied with not enough money, not enough time, not enough opportunity, you are broadcasting a vibration of lack that will be mirrored in your experience. On the other hand, if you train your mind to dwell on ideas of abundance, divine provision, and unlimited possibilities, you open yourself to receiving exactly that. The spiritual law is precise: what you dwell upon grows, and what you neglect fades away. To think rightly is to think in alignment with truth. The truth that God is your source, that His supply is limitless, and that you are meant to live in overflow rather than in scarcity. This kind of thinking requires discipline, because the human mind has a tendency to focus on appearances and to be swayed by fear. Right thinking is not ignoring reality, but seeing a higher reality beyond what the senses report. It is choosing to interpret every situation through the lens of faith rather than doubt. When a bill arrives, the fearful mind says, "I don't have enough to cover this." The faith-filled mind says, "God is my unfailing supply, and the resources I need are on their way." That shift in thought is the difference between shutting down possibility and opening the door for provision to appear. Affirmations are one of the most effective tools for cultivating right thinking. By repeating statements of truth, you impress them upon your subconscious mind until they become automatic patterns. For example, affirmations like, "I am one with God's abundance," or "Everything I need is here and now," create a mental atmosphere that invites prosperity. Over time, the subconscious begins to accept these statements as facts, and your actions naturally begin to reflect them. Your choices, risks, and openness to opportunity will align with the belief that abundance is your reality, and as a result, abundance will begin to show up in tangible ways. Guarding the mind is another essential aspect of right thinking. Just as a gardener removes weeds to protect the health of the plants, you must remove negative, fearful, and critical thoughts before they take root. These mental weeds can come from many sources: news headlines, conversations with pessimistic people, old limiting beliefs from childhood. But you have the authority to reject them. When you catch yourself thinking in ways that contradict abundance, stop immediately and replace the thought with one that aligns with truth. This mental vigilance is not a one-time act, but a daily practice, much like keeping a clean and orderly home. Visualization is also a powerful companion to right thinking. The mind responds strongly to images, and by holding a clear, vivid picture of the life you desire, you give your thoughts a blueprint to follow. Imagine yourself living in financial ease, giving generously, traveling freely, or building a thriving business. See the details, feel the emotions, and allow your mind to experience that reality as if it were already here. The subconscious will take that picture as instruction and begin aligning your behavior and attracting circumstances to match it. Florence Scovel Shinn often said, "Your word is your wand." But your mental imagery is also a wand, casting a vision for your life that shapes the unseen forces around you. Right thinking is also closely tied to gratitude. A mind that focuses on what is lacking cannot produce prosperity, but a mind that notices and appreciates what is already present naturally attracts more. Gratitude is a thought pattern that keeps you in a constant state of awareness of God's provision, which reinforces faith and quiets fear. When you make a habit of acknowledging blessings, both big and small, you create a mental climate in which abundance can grow. This is why gratitude journals, spoken thankfulness, and moments of silent appreciation are such powerful spiritual tools. The results of right thinking are not limited to finances, they permeate every part of life. Opportunities open, relationships improve, creativity flows more easily, and challenges are met with solutions rather than despair. People are drawn to you because your energy is uplifting and confident, and this in turn creates new channels for prosperity to reach you. Your thinking shapes the way you respond to life, and your responses shape the results you see. It becomes a cycle. Right thinking produces good results, which reinforce more right thinking, which produces even greater results. Maintaining right thinking in the face of difficulty requires persistence. There will be moments when appearances seem overwhelming, when the evidence in front of you does not match the vision in your heart. In those moments, you must hold firmly to the higher truth, refusing to let the temporary sway you from the eternal. This is the kind of mental steadfastness that allows miracles to happen. It is not denial of the problem, it is alignment with the solution. The mind that remains fixed on abundance will inevitably draw it forth, just as surely as a seed planted in fertile soil will grow when nourished and protected. Acting in obedience and expectancy is the living proof of your faith in divine supply. It is not enough to think rightly, speak affirmations, and pray for abundance. You must also take the steps you are divinely guided to take. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that God's blessings often come through action, and that when an idea, opportunity, or inner prompting appears, it is your responsibility to move forward without hesitation. Obedience is responding to that nudge, even when the outcome is not yet visible. It is trusting that the instruction is part of a bigger plan that will unfold as you take each step. When you act in obedience, you align your movement with God's timing, which ensures that the resources, people, and conditions you need will be in place when you arrive. Expectancy is the attitude that undergirds obedience. Acting without expectancy is mechanical, acting with expectancy is magnetic. When you take steps believing that something good will happen, you create a field of energy that draws opportunities toward you. Expectancy is not wishful thinking, it is confident anticipation based on the truth that God's promises never fail. Just as a farmer plants seeds expecting a harvest, you take inspired action expecting a return. This expectancy shifts your posture from passively waiting to actively preparing, and preparation is often the signal that tells the universe you are ready to receive. Obedience sometimes requires courage, because the path God leads you on may not make sense to the natural mind. You may be prompted to invest in something before you see the funds, to speak to someone who may open a door for you, or to take on a project that stretches your abilities. The fearful mind will question and delay, but the obedient heart will move forward, trusting that provision is already in motion. Often, the full picture is only revealed in hindsight, and you see that each obedient step was a link in the chain that led to the manifestation you desired. Taking action also shows God that you are a faithful steward of the opportunities already given to you. Many people wait for a perfect set of conditions before acting, but those conditions rarely appear without initial movement. If you are given an idea for a business, start with what you have. If you are led to give, do it with what is in your hand. If you feel prompted to learn a new skill, enroll in the course you can afford now. Obedience in small things builds the faith and capacity for larger things. Florence Scovel Shinn often emphasized that you cannot expect the next instruction until you have acted on the first one. Expectancy transforms your daily outlook. Instead of waking up wondering if something good might happen, You rise with the inner conviction that blessings are already on the way. This mental stance changes the way you speak, carry yourself, and notice opportunities. You become more alert to signs, more receptive to ideas, and more willing to follow through on impulses that lead to provision. People who live in expectancy often find themselves in the right place at the right time, meeting the right people, and hearing the right information, because their energy is attuned to receiving. Obedience and expectancy also work together to overcome fear of risk. When you know you are following divine direction and expecting divine outcome, you are less concerned with what others think or with temporary setbacks. Even if a step does not produce immediate results, it is part of a larger pattern moving you toward your goal. This mindset frees you from the paralysis of overthinking and positions you to act decisively when opportunities arise. Many blessings are missed because the moment to act passed while someone was still debating whether it was safe. Obedience acts. Expectancy receives. Another dimension of this principle is preparation. If you truly expect abundance, you prepare for it as if it were already here. This could mean organizing your finances to handle more income, creating space in your schedule for new projects, or upgrading your skills in anticipation of greater responsibility. Preparation is a physical expression of faith, and it signals to both your subconscious and the spiritual realm that you are ready for what you desire. Just as a host prepares for guests before they arrive, you prepare for blessings before they manifest. Living in obedience and expectancy also keeps you from becoming stagnant. Without movement, even the most powerful spiritual truths remain theoretical. Action energizes faith, and expectancy fuels persistence. When you continue to take steps toward your vision and expect divine supply to meet you along the way, you stay in the flow of creation. You become a co-worker with God, not just an observer of life. This co-creation is where the most extraordinary manifestations occur, because you are not only believing for miracles, but positioning yourself to catch them when they appear. Finally, obedience and expectancy cultivate joy in the journey. Instead of dreading the unknown, you look forward to what each day might bring, knowing that even the smallest step can be the one that changes everything. You trust that the one who began a good work in you is guiding each decision and orchestrating each connection for your highest good. This trust removes the weight of having to figure everything out on your own and replaces it with the lightness of walking in step with divine timing.